What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Between Two Heads. My name is Jameson Welbourn. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, the talented Addison DeMoura. And today we have a very special episode. We are joined by the creator of Black Market Donuts, the owner of the Trippy Chili Hot Sauce Company, and the founder and face of Little Lake Valley Seed Co., Mr. Tbeezle. Taylor.
Hey, how you doing all? How you doing?
Good, man. Thank you for taking the time, man.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to this. You and I have connected on multiple occasions, and I know you and Addison work closely together, and have been longtime friends. So I'm very excited about this episode. And like we do with all episodes, before we talk about all the exciting projects that you're working on, we want to take it back, learn more about the maker, and your history. So I know that you're a third generation Northern Californian. You grew up in Willits, which is in the southern tip of the Triangle. Can you tell us a little bit about what life was like growing up?
So I grew up with a relatively large family. My mother has 11 brothers and sisters. I have a very large amount of cousins that live in the area. Most of them actually live in the Willits area. I grew up with a mother that was a healthcare professional. My dad's an educator, high school teacher. I have 3 sisters myself, 2 older, 1 younger. So sort of like the kind of younger middle child, I guess. And life here, growing up, I grew up with a family that was, simple. We weren't super high class, and we weren't dirt poor either.
How did your family end up in the hills up there?
My grandmother came over to California in the Dust Bowl from Bacoshi, Oklahoma, on the border of Arkansas. And so my grandmother was a migrant farm worker. And so when she landed in California, she landed in the Salinas Valley.
Okay.
And so my grandmother was an artichoke picker in Santa Maria.
Cool.
And my mother was actually born in the fields. So my family lived like in the field shacks, just like,
cool.
My family was very, very poor back then. When my mother was growing up, my grandmother on that side, like I said, migrant farm worker, never had much of anything. So my grandmother worked migrantly up California, and she knew and heard from the migrant farm workers in Salinas that there was vineyards and there's wine work up here. And so she slowly made her way up here. And then eventually she decided to settle in Willits, and she became the school janitor here.
Okay.
So my grandmother was like the lead janitor in the school system she retired when she was like 65, 66.
You have real Northern California roots. So super.
Oh, yeah. In fact, hold on one second. This is a picture of her on her retiring day at the middle school, which is actually like a stone's throw from my house. But this is my grandmother right here at the school retiring.
Hell yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
real deal old Southern woman.
Yeah, right by my desk, I have a picture that Taylor brought me of is it your great-grandfather?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's his great-grandfather, and they're in the redwoods, and they're lumberjacks that are chopping down redwood trees. And I have it right by my desk. It's like this beautiful old-time photo of his family. It's pretty cool. So you have old heritage lineage from Northern California, redwoods. You've been up there. Your family comes from there. So it makes sense that now was it, when did your family get into the cannabis stuff? I think that is that like early on? Were they a part of that, or what was their whole involvement?
Right around the late 70s, early 80s, when all the logging industry left, that sort of stuff. There was a lot of work here and a lot of money here before industry left. So my great grandfather, on my mother's father's side, he was one of the lead engineers that built Highway 101 from San Francisco to Eureka. And so there was work here. There was lots of logging. I mean, it was a huge, bustling, booming area. And then once sort of the whole thing of logging died out, there's almost still nothing here today. And back then it was a real big nothing. And so I'd say the late 70s, early 80s is when they really started taking it up for as, economic means to survive.
That was done simply out of necessity. Like, from the stories that you've heard, was it simply that we had no choice, the jobs dried up, and this is what we could do to feed our families, or was it something that they were interested in and pursued because of interest?
Well, it was so there wasn't like any no jobs. It's not like this place became an abandoned desert in the middle of the Sahara. There are jobs here, but the jobs weren't paying enough for you to be able to afford a decent home and feed your children and provide them with a decent life. Like, take them out and do something once in a while, provide them with a nice birthday present, not saying those things are essential or a necessity, but they're nice to do for your children if you can.
Yeah. And it's bonding.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was hard here. And so, they took it as a means of survival, but also some of the people didn't even smoke cannabis. Yeah. And I know if some of the people listening, it's going to sound funny, but when you back a man into a corner and he has bills and mouths to feed, he doesn't look at certain things as a privileged person can from a different point of perspective.
Bro, that's Breaking Bad. That's how Breaking Bad starts.
That's what I'm saying. It was a real means of survival. And trust me, a lot of my uncles and stuff didn't want to be out there running from helicopters and hiking up down woods and trying to run streams and water lines because they thought it was fun or wanted to.
Absolutely. So let's touch on that a little bit. I mean, growing up, when was your first memories of being around cannabis in this large family?
Like 12, 13. I remember we all had wood stoves, so we'd all go out in the woods in the winter and cut, woods and bring all the logs into the house and get them under tarps to dry them, so we would have wood for the next year, and it was like a continual thing. You'd have it in cycles. So every winter there was dry piles, wet piles, and you'd have to, So I remember going out in the woods one time, and before we go out, they're like, "Oh, hey, by the way, Taylor, we need to lay all these bags of dirt." I remember coming back in and, going into the shop where certain parts of the year, I'm not allowed in certain shops. I'm not allowed in certain parts of the house. Do you know what I mean? And then when I'm a little older, I'm like, well, there's this weird smell every time they're saying that. And then I remember one time they're like, here, take these plants and go to the shop and hang them up, let them dry. I'm like, what? Walking in there and just seeing all these plants. I'm like, what kind of fucking family do I live in? These guys are super odd. You know what I mean? And then it just kind of clicked about 13, 14, having my cousins here, you want to smoke a joint? You know what I mean? And then it clicked.
This is that stuff. Yeah.
This is that stuff. Yeah. But when it first started, 12, 13, I look back on it, they were using my little ass to do the shit necessarily so they could take a joint coffee break. And they're like, man, look at that little motherfucker load all that dirt in that truck.
Yeah. It sounds like your path was really all those uncles were in it and doing it. And you were just submerged in this entire environment that was just all cannabis, it sounds like. Because if you're up there, that's the case, right? So.
Yep. And that's my mom's family. So my dad's a school teacher. So my dad's going to teach at school every day coming home, but he's a super stoner. He loves smoking weed. And my mom's family is just a huge growing family. So my dad's just it was my dad's a super cool person. He's just in the most wonderful position where he's a stoner teacher and never had to pay weed his whole life. My father's very educated too. Talk about education. We're talking about 2 PhDs and a master's degree.
Oh man.
We're talking a highly, dude thinks in numbers and patterns, basically.
Nice. Yeah, I love that picture you showed the other day of him in the garden.
Of him out there at 81, second hip replaced, down there on his hands and knees, just getting it. Yeah, people need to see that in today's age. There's a lot of people that are able-bodied, good mind, could do something, and they literally find an excuse why they can't do it. And I just want people to understand that this guy's 81, 2 hips replaced. It's over 90 degrees. Any person would tell somebody at that age, you're not supposed to work in the hot sun. My dad will go tell you to go fuck yourself.
That's good genetics, though.
And then
That's
he will
definitely good
literally
genetics.
put all those bricks up, and he'll do that whole wall. He'll lay all those water lines, and he'll come on and he'll drink water when he wants to.
Yeah, no, that's
You
good.
know,
That's
like-
good. That's good genes. So like for you at that time, you're 13, 14, you're just kind of figuring it out. What's sort of what role do you start to take now that you're getting a little bit older and you know, now what kind of happens after that?
Like, is there a specific guerrilla style of growing that your family likes to do? And do you have a specific job? Like, are you finding springs and then directing water over?
So my mom's oldest brother was the railroad master from Ukiah to Eureka. Sometime in the 80s, there was the Island Mountain train tunnel fire. Island Mountain is where the three counties connect, actually, at a point. Mendocino, Humboldt, and Trinity. There's a train tunnel that runs through Island Mountain. That train tunnel lit on fire and it collapsed, and it's still never been fixed. That's why the trains, the Western Pacific Railroad, that's why it doesn't run in the north. That's why we have all these abandoned tracks.
You know, someone's got a grow set up in there for sure. There's no question about it.
So that's the one tunnel that connects everything. So after that closed, my mom's brother just retired from the railroad. Well, he knew all the rivers, the streams, the springs. He knew all the logging roads, all that stuff. So what he would do, he figured out that the helicopters were seeing people from the sky that, you know, you just can't grow out in the open. So what he did, he started doing the Manzanita Grove grows. So he'd go in and we would dig out around the Manzanita groves, and the Manzanita grows up and makes like a perfect cover, but it lets all the like essential light through to grow your plants. So we started doing that. And man, sometimes we would we would take springs and make coffer dams and make like the little pools so we could have something to siphon and suck from to make the pressure. And this dude would run water lines sometimes like 2.5, 3 miles to crops.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's like wild shit, you know, and he'd go, well, whoever would think since there's no water here that someone would be growing here, you know? And there's plots out there that I've gone and hiked with my dogs that, like, if you hike deep in and you're willing to crawl on your hands and knees, there's still his old plots in the Manzanitas. All the water lines all chewed up and rotten, but you can literally see where he used to grow in the 80s running from the police and shit.
That's so gangster. And you guys still have that property and stuff?
No, that's not our property, but we're talking like this is Jackson State Forest public lands.
Okay.
Yeah. And back then you weren't growing on your own land 100% for sure.
Yep. You weren't trying to jeopardize anything at that point.
Yeah, no. This is out halfway on Highway about halfway. So there's a place called Three Chop. You go out Willits on Highway 20, and you'll go down. It's out past Irmokel Road. And there's an area called Three Chop. You go out there, that's Jackson State National Forest. And so that's all the area we used to go out and do that stuff. Because you're allowed to go logging. So we would go out there and put the chainsaws and be like, oh, we're out in the woods trying to find trees to log, when really we're out there running water lines, fucking doing all kinds of crazy shit.
Were you aware of the seriousness of what you were doing at that time, or was it all pretty fun and games?
Oh yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Like they let us know. Like it's definitely not fun and games.
Yeah.
Like you had to listen out there. Like you couldn't be out there like, oh hey, we're out here fucking doing shit. You know what I'm saying? Like they taught you to walk through the woods without leaving a trail. Yeah. They taught you to be really quiet, like how to hear people coming before they knew you were even there, kind of shit. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like old school guys, they taught you how to do this and like get back home.
That's crazy.
Coming up, like cannabis was all around. You know, your dad was a school teacher. Was he a teacher at your school?
No. Okay. So my dad eventually took a job down in Santa Rosa because, you know, more money in the urban environments. You know, and based upon how many like teaching credentials he has and how much education level he has, your pay is based upon that on a scale. So like the more, like if you have a master's degree, you get paid much more than somebody that has a bachelor's degree. That's just, at least in the Sonoma County school system where he works. So he decided to start commuting to work down there.
Yeah. And your father was considerably older than, say, the average father during that
Bro,
day.
you want to talk about schools and older and all this shit. My father was my mother's school teacher at Willits High School.
Wow.
My mom married my dad when she was 18 and my dad was 32.
Wow.
And my mom's brother and sisters are telling me, yeah, but he was super tapping that before she was 18. You believe that shit.
So we're
And
talking
I'm
about the hill. These are the hills we're
Oh, bro, my dad's the original pimp OG motherfucker. Like my dad was the guy in today's age that he's all over the news being like, this guy's over here fucking students. Do you know what I mean? But we're talking like, we're talking 1973.
So your dad's the genesis of Me Too, is what you're trying to tell us. That's kind of
dude. My dad's like the original. Like my dad's like I get it in, believe it.
Oh God.
So my dad is 81 years old, and my littlest sister is 29.
Oh damn.
Like we're full blood. We're full blood. We're not talking half sister here, G.
Did your dad take a lot of trips to Thailand at any point?
Oh hell no!
Remember? Okay.
My dad believes made in the USA. He's from a different generation, G.
No, I love it. I love it.
So what was
it
that
is
like?
a little creepy.
What was that like for you growing up? Like, was that an advantage, a disadvantage?
It was a super disadvantage in a small town like this because the guy who ran the whole Little League, like the whole thing for the Little League commissioner, was my mom's ex-boyfriend in high school.
Oh.
And then she left him for, the teacher. So when I was going into Little League, they were like, Taylor, wait, is your dad Michael? And I'd be like super proud. Yeah, my mom's Beverly. They'd be like, yeah, you're on this team.
on the bench.
Oh yeah, growing up in a super small little redneck community and like your mom is the chick who married the teacher, like, yeah, your life sucks.
So you had did you have like a lot of social pressure because of this stuff? Were you like not the cool dude? And like, what was that like?
Well, I was a super like overweight kid, and I never had girlfriends. I was never the ladies' man. I barely had any, like, I didn't have real friends. I'd like go to bounce around from social group to social group and sort of like I would just awkwardly not fit in. Then when I felt weird enough, I would go to the next group and bounce around, And so my whole premise with that, and then it didn't make it any easier with my parents' situation because when I would go to functions where they're supposed to be helping kids like me kind of like integrate and be like, oh, little kids are being mean to you. Well, check it out. This is how all these adults are like, oh, well, fuck you. You're their kid. So go fuck yourself. So I'm like, damn, all these adults hate me. These kids are making fun of me. This is shit.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your first experiences with cannabis, actually consuming the plant. What was that like? Was there one experience that you can remember was the first and defining experience?
I mean, not really like defining experience, but I remember like we went on a camping trip. I was old enough to allowed to go on some of my older cousins' camping trips, and we went to the coast. And it's the first time I smoked weed. We were at the river, and they were just sort of like, well, his mom let him go camping with us. She knows we smoke weed. I just let him smoke weed. It's weed. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, I remember for sure they said I couldn't drink. They're like, we catch you drinking, we're going to beat your ass. And I was like, oh, yeah, understood. But I remember smoking at the river, and I just remember like just being like, damn, this is why people carry all that dirt and water, all that shit. And I was like, that's why. I was like, I was wondering why y'all went through all this trouble. I was like, this is awesome.
So it's not even knowing the money end of it either yet, really.
No, oh hell no, man. They were not anywhere letting me know nothing about that. They were just kind of like, oh, this is, this is fun and what we do and we work hard at it, and I wasn't paying bills or rent, or I didn't know about you had to pay for life yet. I didn't know nothing about that shit.
So did it remain an occasional thing, or did you immediately dive into it and say, I want to start using this all the time?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was sort of like an occasional thing because like coming from a dad that's a teacher, I was a super straight A student, like all through middle school, all through, all through school. I'm like a super like good grade person. Cause my dad like made us, you know what I'm saying? He made us do like flashcards. He made us do, you know, learn to read early. He made us do all these things. So it wasn't an option in my house to be a dummy.
Yeah.
So I found it kind of like, sometimes I realize like, oh, if I go out and do stoner shit with my friends, I'd be putting off all this school shit. And like, my dad didn't fuck around. Like, he'd jerk you up. You know what I'm saying? Like, he'd be like, I'm not asking you to get good grades in my house. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not an agreement. It's a fucking.
Yeah. It's not, you know, I'm telling you, this is what you're going to do. Yeah.
So early on, you had some issues with integrating into that social scene, and you know, you were maybe the heavy set kid that might have been ostracized. Did that get any better in high school, or did that continue more of the same?
Yeah, no, that was just more of the same, you know. And I never really had anybody at home encouraging me to do that, you know. Like my mother, bless her heart, you know what I'm saying? She was a cool mom. I love her to death, but my mom was a mentally ill drug addict. And so my mom didn't have the skill sets to teach me how to deal with this or do with life because she didn't have them herself. And then my poor father, loving my mother so much, not wanting to, you know, who wants to abandon the person they love because they're going through something? He's that generation that like to the day we die thing. And it was hard for him to try to teach me how to be a man in the right way and deal with these things because he's having to deal with my mom when he gets home from work. Because, you know, eventually my mom quit work and she was at home sick, you know, sort of like not sick, but mentally ill. My mom couldn't work anymore because her mental illness took over. So my dad's having to provide for me, my sister, her, deal with her. So they're, you know, I when I was younger, I was kind of bitter about it. But as I got older, I realized as a man, like he just had this much for me left. How can I expect him to get, you know, there was no more to give. And now I realize that and I'm okay with it. But I just didn't have anyone teaching me the right skill sets on how to deal with these things. So high school, yeah, it just continued the same. My young adulthood continued the same.
So staying in high school, what did your relationship with the plant continue to look like? Like, did you start open blasting? Was that something that you were doing?
Oh yeah. I mean, I started making bubble hash when I was 14.
Okay.
So that's like freshman year.
Yeah.
But yeah, we started open blasting around the same time too.
And was that a big thing? Like, was that a big part of your life at that point? Like, were you doing it for the love of the plant and just sort of curiosity, or was it like a large scale
well, it was, I had a friend up here and his older brother was like super into weed. And 8th grade summer, he like came into like, we're all hanging out in his little brother's bedroom, you know, it's summer, we're trying to plant something out. And he's like, hey, check this out. And he like took this stuff, and I'm assuming now it was bubble, you know, when it's not made right and it gets all oxidized and crumbly. I'm pretty sure because he crumbled all these powders on our pipes because, you know, he's like, pull out your guys' pipes here. And I remember hitting it with the lighter and it melted like all these bubbles. And I just remember being like, that's what I need and want. I want that.
So also in high school, I believe in your sophomore year, you connected with the father of a former business partner of yours that had a lot of influence. I think he was pretty well traveled in the hash community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So like I said, my father took jobs in Santa Rosa as teaching, and we lived here in Willits. And with my mother's decline, he just didn't want to commute. I mean, bro, it's a 3-hour commute each day. My dad just, you know, he's getting older. He's not down. So we moved to Cloverdale. Cloverdale south of Willits, probably about 45 minutes. And it's only about half an hour, 25 minutes outside of Santa Rosa where he worked. So we moved there. My sophomore year of high school. And my former business partner does Tbeezle extracts, Dorian. That's where I'd met him in high school. And it's his father that, yeah, very well traveled into Europe, into the hash scene, all those things. I'd already been so fascinated with hash at that point. And then I had met him, And his son eventually had gone off to college after high school. I didn't go to college. I stayed behind. So while his son was gone, I would just nerd out and go hang out with his dad all the time. And his dad would teach me techniques of hash, talk to me about hash. We would smoke hash, talk about all his like he was on the original hippie trail of hash, bringing and smuggling hash from Europe, from Morocco into Europe. And so he had all these cool things. And then finally one day I brought him some stuff and he was just like, dude, like, I literally don't have anything to show you anymore. Like, that's it. And I just remember the day being like, whoa, like, okay, I wonder how much further like we can go with this shit, you know? And just to have him, like, give him a batch that he was just absolutely mesmerized by. That was like that deciding factor that I knew.
Yeah.
Like that look though, that he gave, that look, I wanted to see that look from other people like forever.
That rite to passage. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So 2004, you graduate high school. What happens after that?
I went to work at Shots Bakery and Cafe in Ukiah.
Are you still growing? Are you making hash? Are you transporting?
Oh yeah. I'm going home every day and still making all the hash, because my parents, they're just super cool. They let me set up a hash lab in the garage. Like, they just parked the cars out in the driveway and they were just like, oh yeah, like, you can make all the bubble hash you want in the garage. Just set up over here and do all this shit. So I was just like, oh shit. Okay. So ever since I was in high school, I had a like hash lab at my parents' house. So when I had the job, I would just like go home, you know, and my parents are super cool. They would only charge me like $300 a month on rent to like, you know, be in the bedroom. Cause my dad told me, listen, like, if you're going to have a job and you're still going to live in the house, like, you got to pay rent. And I understood, you know what I mean? Like, it's just how the world works. And I would go home from the bakery job, the cook job, you know, and practice my craft. And back in the 215 days, you could go to a dispensary and sell your product to any dispensary you wanted. So I had multiple dispensaries in San Francisco, multiple in Santa Cruz. And it so happened Dorian was in college in Santa Cruz. So on weekends, I would get off. So all week I would make the hash and I would prep it, package it. So on Friday, when I got off of work, I would load up my little Honda Civic, little 93 Civic hatchback, and I would smash down to San Francisco, go do a bunch of deliveries, go down to Santa Cruz, do a bunch of deliveries, hang out with him, stay the night, and then head home. And like that's how I not only gained and practiced the skills to earn, you know, the what I have today in the craft, but also how to be able to go and market these said things and be able to sell them to people. And then also what I didn't realize is I was making the connections with all of these people, because through the years, a lot of the top people all rub elbows, you know, and I started realizing that a lot of like some of the people that buy my products today are the same people that were buying them at, let's say, the Vapor Room, Marvin, you know, over on Haight and Ashbury, you know. I mean, Marvin bought hash from me for years.
Martin Olive.
Yeah, Martin Olive. Yeah.
He's a good dude. I love him.
That dude's really cool.
Well, you know what's funny is that was one of the spots where you could get a lot of good bubble hash back in the day. That and then the third. What was the one that was down in the basement in San Francisco? Remember that one? That was like you had to go down the fucking stairs. It was almost like Amsterdam. Do you remember that? Because that was another spot in San Francisco that had great hash for a long time. I can't remember what the fuck it was called.
There was man, that was a while ago, and there were so many dispensaries there. Like those San Francisco buildings are so odd.
It's so crazy. We got to live during that period where we could just grow anything, process it, take it to a dispensary, get cash for it. There's like no tracking of anything. It's like, all right, thanks a lot. Just leave. And then those are the greatest days. Those really were. When I look back on my entire life in cannabis, to those times. It was like those were the greatest times, and it's now looking at like building a business around the rec system in California, and trying to put something together now. When you look at it, there's so much regulation and so much tax and all these crazy things, and it was like we made it work the other way. So that's why I think people see it both. They get crazy now, but those were insane times. Those were definitely like the craziest periods for a lot of us to be able to get to do that stuff. And I remember too, at the same time that Taylor's referring to, that was when you had a very robust dispensary community like building up in Sacramento. So now Sacramento was kind of coming on board, and you had Oakland and San Francisco, but at the same time, Los Angeles was building up. And that was kind of like, that's why some guys were so successful, because they were at the source, place, tinkering and doing different things with hash, and then getting their distribution and just following this natural sort of, direction of bringing it down into, Oakland, Bay Area, and then going from there down into San Jose, from there down into Los Angeles. And that was how you had like some brands back in the day started really blowing up, and then the competition started coming on, like Emerald Cup and different things like that.
The speed at which innovators, fast movers, and entrepreneurs were able to bring products to market, a positive or negative response from those, and then quickly pivot and move and react to those, is what was able to allow that market to move so quickly. We have a much more cantankerous system that forces much slower innovation. You talked about your experiences traveling down to the Bay Area, distributing hash at not only your friend at the time, USC college campus, but also all these different up and coming dispensaries or rec shops. I don't know what you referred to them at the time as, but when did you get really inspired to get focused into the art of hash making?
So when I started to see it really take off in the dispensaries, like before it would be like, an ounce every so often here, an ounce every so often there. And then people, like you were saying, Martin Olive, they would be like, hey, we need like this much every Tuesday. Like, we need you to come back every week with this much. And I was like, wow, holy shit. And then they were like, hey, if you want, you could put it in all these little jars for us and we'll pay you this much more. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I started to realize like people were coming in and saying, oh, I'll take one of these, two of those. I want to taste orange this. Oh, this one tastes like lemons. Okay, I'll take one of those. And I was like, uh-oh, here we go. I was like, this is going to be something big. And that was like 2008, 9. And then that's basically when it got serious for me.
What happened at the same time was when cannabis testing was introduced, now when people went to the dispensary and they bought flower, they could see that the $25 gram of water hash actually had 550 milligrams of THC compared to the 22 gram of flour, 15 gram of flour only had 160 milligrams. Right at about 2008, 2009, cannabis testing comes around, and now you can start. And that's when there was a huge boom in bubble hash sales, just because of the fact that dispensaries now could say the consumer could look on the counter and be like, holy shit, there's only 150 milligrams to 180 milligrams or so in a gram of cannabis in a flower. But for $25, I can get 550 milligrams in a fucking gram of water hash. And that just boosted, like Harborside had, I think, a 75% increase in hash sales once the testing came around. So yeah, that was a crazy ass fucking time.
So I know from our live last night, you told me this story. At what point did you make the decision to approach your father and show him the Bubble Now machine that Marcus had just put out and the new bag set and ask him for the loan to make that purchase?
I think that was right around 2008 or 9 when I got real serious about it.
That's dope. So how quickly were you able to repay that loan?
7 days.
Holy shit. What was the anticipation? What did you think it was going to be?
My father gave me 6 months. He said, if you don't pay me in 6 months, you got to move out of the house and pay me back.
And you still got to owe me my money, but you got to get the fuck out.
No, he wasn't playing.
That's gangster. And you paid him in 7 days. So did that make it so that you had like better credit now? You could borrow whatever you needed or what?
Oh, yeah.
Fuck. So you had a financier at this point because you nutted back up in 7 days. So that's beautiful.
Well, my dad had already had like probably a net worth of over $1 million. You know, he's an old man, you know, credit score well over 800, multiple properties. So he's a businessman, and I knew that, and he knew I knew that. Like, he's a very, very smart school teacher. He's a school teacher with a big net worth, and he knows how to invest money and use money.
Smart.
So I knew I could borrow money from him, but I also knew that if I fucked it up, that it would take me a long time to earn his respect back.
Yeah. But 7 days is pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Well, it turned from like, okay, I'll give you 6 months to, can we be partners?
And what happened after that? What was the next loan? What did you grab? How did you expand? What happened next?
Well, that was the thing. I really didn't have to take a loan after that. Good. I just continually, my family was big growers, and everyone I knew was growers. So all I had to do was come and pay them for material.
And I remember you mentioned earlier that Dorian's dad was influential and that you were friends with Dorian. Now, at this point, is Dorian out of school and coming back up and making hash, and you guys are doing that together? Or where did that relationship go? What kind of happens after that?
He graduated college, I believe, 2009. Mm-hmm. So it's right around 2009 he graduated, but he didn't move back up here till like 2000, I believe, 11 or 12.
Yeah, because he worked with Benson at the grow shop, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we all met Benson.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. So when he comes back up, what do you guys end up doing then? What's kind of the gig?
Well, we'd have to rewind a little bit because 2010 is when I won my first Emerald Cup.
Okay.
And so that's when I actually started gaining, real notoriety and attention. Mm-hmm. Skunk Magazine. I mean, all this kind of shit. There's the big time player people around.
So then in 2011, there's no Emerald Cup, right?
Yeah, there's no Emerald Cup. In 2012 is the first year they bring it to Redway, to the Mateel Community Center. What
do you do with your brand between winning the cup, having no cup, and then coming into that next year? What was that like?
I mean, it's a brand, but it's not like a brand what we consider branding right now, because you're still very much under the radar. You're not trying to draw attention to yourself at this point. Like you're trying to differentiate yourself, but you're not trying to do it in a way that makes Big Brother like upset.
You're not trying to draw too much.
I want to jump in and pull it back a little bit. I want to ask you about, you say that, when you got serious about making hash, you went to your father and got this loan and grabbed the bubble now machine and the set of bags from Marcus. How influential was Marcus, his videos and his forums for you honing your craft as a hash maker?
Well, they were awesome because, there wasn't a bunch of those kind of people around me. I mean, there was Dorian's dad, but that was it, So it was really cool to get on that Bubble Man's World Forum and just nerd the fuck out on all kinds of techniques and people's pictures and, whatever information that they were divulging, and kind of experimenting and realizing like, oh, okay, well, this guy had a 10-part process, but these parts right here were actually disinformation trying to get you to fuck up because he necessarily didn't want you to get his exact tech. So I started realizing I got to take this guy's 1, 2, 3, this guy's 7, 8, 9, and this guy's 10. And I got to combine them to make something that actually works.
There was a lot of that back then too. There was kind of like a lot of smoke signals and diversionary sort of shit that,
Yeah.
I mean, think of how many guys who were authors and other things that no one knew that was the actual author. It was because what we were talking about back then was like fucking heavy prosecution. I mean, the stories from back in the day then, you didn't only have the DEA after you, but you had local, state, other police after you. You had to travel through multiple municipalities to deliver product. We had medical, but what medical meant was you have a piece of paper that you could take to court with you now, and you actually have a defense. And you're going to pay for a lawyer, and you're going to pay for this, and you're going to pay for that. So yeah, those were crazy days. That was definitely a nutty time for a lot of people. So.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So
it was fun too.
It's very apparent to me that when listening to your interview on the Hashishin with Shiragam and hearing you say, you know, every day I wake up and before I go to work with this plant, I go through my head, Keith Stroop, got it, Margaret Mead, got it, Jack Hare, got it, that you absorbed the activism culture that was going on during those frequent trips down to the Bay Area. Would you say that was by osmosis and just being in the same areas as those activists, or were you seeking that out and trying to go listen to Jack or see somebody else speak?
Well, the thing is, I was really close to Jack Carrere. Jack Carrere lived in Lake County for like the good part later on of his life. And he used to come out to my uncle's house and play cards with him and shit, and smoke with him and shit. Chucky, this like little hippie guy, Chucky was Jack Carrere's caretaker on the last parts of his life, and my uncle was very, very close with Chucky. So when Chucky became his caretaker, they would all just come out to my uncle's house and fucking hang out.
That's cool.
That's incredible. Do you have like any stories or anything that sticks out for you about that? What are your memories of Jack? Like what do those look like?
Oh man, he's just a very easy go lucky, just like typical stoner guy. Really cool, you know?
Yeah, sweet. He's a sweet man.
Yeah, awesome dude.
You're honing your craft. You're continuing to distribute products. 2010, you compete in your first Emerald Cup that Addison was just talking about, and I think that was at Area 101.
Yeah.
What was that like? What was it a big event with the fanfare that surrounds it today, or was it a much different event at that time?
Oh no, it's super small.
What was it like?
Yeah.
Very, very like
damp.
Yeah, no, it's Wookie, damp, musty kind of like environment. But
I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
It's you know, like like the people putting it together used to eat way too much acid the day of the event, and then you know everyone falls apart. Fucking
rain. It was rainy.
It's always rainy.
Yeah.
It's one of those like kind of hillbilly in the woods of Mindo put together. Like if you were used to being anywhere near like a put together scene in LA and you went to that, you'd be like, what the fuck is this?
Oh,
it's definitely not like what the Emerald Cup is now. That's hence the reason why they've made it into what it is now.
Yeah. Yeah. It was at Area 101, and Area 101, if you don't know it, is in the Redwoods and sort of looks like a driveway, or like it looks almost like
it's 12 and a half miles of north of Laytonville at the base of the Spy Rock Mountains.
Mm-hmm. So it's redwoods thick. You're driving on the highway and you see this like alien and this crazy thing on the side of the road, and you're like, what the fuck?
Matter of fact, I invited Addison to be a judge one time, and he was coming from Merced, where he used to live with his ex-wife. Modesto, and I'm like, hey, bro, you got to come up here to do the judge. We're all having like a round table. All the judges are meeting. Cuban growers driving down from Washington. Like, bro, you got to come. So this fool gets to Laytonville and thinks he drives too far. And I'm like, Addison, no, bro. You gotta keep driving. He calls me again when he gets like a little bit of service. Hey, man, I think you had me drive too far. Yeah, I'm like, no, I'm standing out and it's fucking hailing, freezing rain. I'm out on the side of Highway 101. Logging trucks are blowing by me thinking I'm some tweaker trying to hitchhike. And all of a sudden, Addison's fucking Mercedes rolls up and he's like, oh, hey, Taylor. And I'm like, we're right here, buddy. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Taylor invited me. So I was a BHO guy and I had the lab and I knew all these BHO makers coming through. And it was, you know, the BHO guys we were working closely with because they were into chemical science technically, and they're using solvents and doing different stuff. So it was a closer lead to the lab, where the solventless guys, we would analyze their stuff, but it was more of like testing it for mold and stuff. So when I knew Taylor knew me as like a BHO guy, heavily into BHO. And it was his, and I think it was Alex's plan to convert me. And I was like, you know, I'm like, listen, the reason why I like BHO over, I had my arguments, but it was because we'd see a lot of mold in solventless because we didn't have dehydrators and other things by then. And things were a little less safe. And it was like, there was a lot of aspergillus and other weird fucking molds that we would see. People weren't drying stuff correctly or curing it correctly. So I was like, fuck that. That's not safe. You know, so Taylor is like, look, I'll fucking bring you in and you can see what clean, safe shit looks like. And I'll show you how to smoke it. And I remember, and I was like, let's go, you know, I'll totally do it. And he brought me in and just into this like insane dream team of solventless people now. Like who was in that room? That was like, it was like Nick T,
Cuban grower,
Cuban, Walt, Alex.
Yep.
Me, my dumbass, you. Was Brandon there or no? Brandon was entering.
Brandon was heavily,
he was winning
heavily
at that point.
Brandon was heavily entering at that all of those times.
Yeah, and they introduced me. They introduced me to solventless, and I get there and I'm like, this is because we're all hitting red hot fucking nails at the time, and these guys are like, you're an idiot. You gotta let this shit cool off. And then you know there was like the screens on the top, and we put it up there, and we just learned. They just showed me a bunch of different ways to consume it, and you know, I started to appreciate it more. And then Alex, when I moved to Southern California, Alex was, you know, at that point, when I would see Taylor, he would give me solventless all the time. But then Alex, when I saw Alex, it was like Alex gave me jars, like ounce jars of solventless, of rosin and shit. He'd be like, here. And I'd be like, oh, what the fuck is this? And I would just smoke that. And then that's how they got me addicted to it. And it was the two of them. That's what happened. I
remember 2012 Emerald Cup, when the first year they had it outside of Area 101. And that's when the only year Steve Hill decided that they would actually do it, because it wasn't at Area 101 and they did it at Redway at the Mateo Center. And I won first place. Dorian won second, and Brandon won third. That's the first year Brandon ever entered a competition. And that first place entry got 83% THC. And I remember Addison and his partner like retested it like 3 or 4 times. And that was like the thing that sold Addison, because Addison was like, potency. I mean, it's cool, it's clean, but I'm Mr. DeMoura and I like to get high. I like strong stuff. And I remember he smoked that sour diesel winter and he saw the test and he was like, Taylor, you sold me. You sold solventless to me on that.
And you gave me parchment. It was like parchment of that, all that melt, and you were like, here.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yes. Those were, yeah.
Because those were the days, those were times when like Bubble Hash definitely wasn't testing over 80%.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like 50s, 60s, and maybe creeping, like maybe a random 71.
Yeah.
But never 85. 86%.
And that's when I started really mastering washing techniques, rinsing the resin. And I started realizing the more you wash, the more you rinse, the purer it is, the more THC percentage it is, because you're getting rid of all the impurities.
Yep. So that was 2012, where where you took first place with your Sour D. I want to go back quickly to 2010. You took first place at the Emerald Cup, a cultivar called Blur, which is, I believe, pure Kush crossed to blueberry.
Yes, sir. That's it.
And can you tell me, did you cultivate that?
No, that was just a family strain. They heard the genetics of it. You know what I mean? And I'm not quite sure. Maybe like a lot of people like to rename stuff up here. So maybe that's not the genetic, but I stuck it in the bags and it washed. And it was amazing. It tastes like blueberry waffles with syrup on it. You know what I mean? It was just like really cool. Hence the reason why it probably won.
And you also took second place as well with your Bubba Kush. Is that correct?
Yeah, Bubba Kush. Bubba Kush to me is one of the, like, if you have a Mount Rushmore of hash strains, Bubba Kush is on it.
Okay, well, I'm not going to let you stop there. Let's do Tbeezle's Mount Rushmore of hash strains right now.
Bubba Kush, Sour Diesel. Then we'd have to go Papaya Skittles.
So this Sour D, I want to talk about a little bit, because not only did you take first in 2012 at Emerald, but you took third in 2013 as well, when they moved from Mateo County Fair to Sonoma County Fairground. Is that cut unique to you, or is that the West Coast cut of sour?
It's actually Spy Rock Sour.
Okay, it's Spy Rock Sour.
Yeah. So Spy Rock's a little mountain range where coincidentally Area 101 sits at the base of.
Yeah.
But it's a little tiny mountain range that extends and runs from Bell Springs Road.
Yeah.
And goes all the way up to Alder Point Road and connects at the junction of Mendocino County and Humboldt County. Like kind of east of Garberville, like 10 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So that Spy Rock mountain range right there is one of the original OG growing areas of all Northern California. And I think they had that type of sour diesel, that cut. I think they had that before anybody had that.
And do you think that it's just the fact that they had it before and now it proliferates, or it is unique to them and it was different than the other West Coast cut?
It's different than even AJ's sour diesel. It's different than East
more
Coast.
Candy.
Yeah.
Less of the soil and more of like a candy flavor. That's like a sweet flavor to it. And then also too, let's not forget, like Spy Rock is, so that whole area is rural. Spy Rock's the beginning of the most rural, craziest, insane fucking road. And like there's murder stories. There's like crazy shit that went on in Spy Rock. That's the fucking, like if you were getting a pack or picking shit up and you're meeting a middle guy and that guy tells you like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going up to Spy Rock, I'd be like, all right, cool. I'm going to wait down here at the hotel. Dude, I'll fucking see you guys later. Like,
that show, Murder Mountain, that's it.
That's on Spy Rock. Yeah.
That's it.
Sketch, bro. Like even Sketch, where Sketch was like, okay, that shit was uber sketch. That was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to fucking. And isn't there a bridge right after that? It's like, it goes Spy Rock and then there's that bridge that goes over and then, isn't that like that? I think that's how I remember that fucking crazy ass area.
Dude, there's a lot of bridges, all sorts of fucking areas like that out there for sure.
So you were actually approached in 2013 by the organizer of Emerald Cup, Tim Blake, to come on as the head judge for the hash category of the Emerald Cup, starting in 2013, or I guess 2014. Is that correct?
Yeah, because 2013 is the last year I entered. I won third, and he did approach me in 2013 after I won, because that's the first year they brought it to Santa Rosa.
Yeah.
And, you take something out of the, let's say, redneck hillbilly light of up here, you got to bring validity to it. And it has to make sense to people who can like criticize you, because now you're in Skunk Magazine. You're in Rolling Stone magazine. I mean, you are national attention now. And he approached me and he was like, hey, you're the person I know the closest to me that I trust that has the most knowledge of hash. Could you help me design like the competition and the rules and kind of, get this thing rolling for me,
Weren't you making hash at Area 101?
I helped them at first set up all that. Yeah, like
because I remember when I went up there,
I showed them like what, how to run freeze dryers, how to program freeze dryers. I showed them what to buy. Yeah, you were up there. You saw that.
Because they launched a hash brand.
Yeah,
You
Emerald
were, like,
Cup hash
helping-
brand, and they used my Uva Loca strain to start it because it,
Yep.
and they actually won a couple cups with my strain because it was such a. I mean, we had bulk frozen material that we were like we didn't care to sell them, and it was such a good strain that they were able to like jumpstart their brand on it.
Whatever happened with that strain? Did you use it as a base for anything, or?
I still got it. I still have seed breeding of it. I don't have the cut of it anymore. A lot of stuff got lost in the big fires.
Yep. What was the lineage of that strain?
It's sour diesel to purple Urkel, and it's an F5.
Yeah, that was great. I remember that was the same period of time, like in time, I think, when maybe dehydrators were coming.
Yeah, the
Because
freeze
remember you were
dryers and stuff.
setting up
Yeah.
the freeze dryers.
I've been messing with freeze dryers for a little while. So when they
Yep.
asked me to help them set up that area, I was like, oh, well, how coincidental and convenient for you that you're going to start your lab on the space age, cutting edge, all this cool shit.
Yeah, that was crazy. I remember that was sort of when bubble hash started to blow up even more.
Yeah.
Like right then.
So before we jump into freeze drying, I want to talk about when you were producing hash and you were air drying. What was your preferred methodology? Were you sieving or were you microplaning?
I would do 3 different types. I would do vacuum oven drying. I would do sieving, and I would do microplaning.
What was that methodology? How did that look? What did that look like?
You basically take the hash and sieve it. You just sieve it on some parchment, put it inside of a vac oven, and you put the vacuum pump on with no heat whatsoever, and you just like vacuum it, and it'll like vacuum dry to an essential oil within like 20 hours, 25 hours.
Interesting. So I want to start kind of at the beginning of your hash making career. And in your interview with the Hashishin, you mentioned that your cousin actually had access to one of Reinhard Delp's prototype machines. And it sounded like you actually got a chance to interact with that machine. Can you describe to us what that machine looked like?
That fucking asshole bought that shit at a yard sale. We were all super fucking high, smoking shit, driving around because my mom was a big yard sale lady. So we're out looking for like, antique furniture. We're out looking for like, shit we can flip and make money. All of a sudden he comes back and he's like, yo, bro, like there's some like hash machine. Bro, I'm just like, I'll go there. He buys it, bring it back. We look on the internet, we start researching and like, it's a real deal. Like, so imagine like a metal base comes up and there's like 4 legs right here. All this is hollow. And then it's like a metal cylinder. Out of that metal cylinder between the legs is like a plastic, like neoprene cone that comes down, and it's got a tube that runs to a glass jar. And the glass jar literally looks like one of those jars that like an Olive Garden you pour olive oil out of, right? And the tube goes to the jar and it sits on the ground. Inside that metal cylinder is like a metal screen at the bottom. You put the weed, you put the ice, has a clear lid that sits on top, and you put the like egg beaters, like the old school like beaters you do in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. Well, we figured out you don't want to put it in the lid with the holes because it's immobile. So we would leave the lid off and we'd be sitting there stirring it and stuff. And you can watch the crystals fall out of the screen, collect on the side of the cone, and then they run and drip down the side of the cone and go into the tube, and they eventually go into the jar. And, we didn't know at the time what we had, but years and years and years and years later, we realized that's one of the original Reinhard Delp bug hash making things.
That's incredible. I think that's a very cool story that you got to play with one of those and see that early days.
That's crazy.
What pushed you to get a freeze dryer? Like, was there a defining moment where maybe you saw somebody else who's produced a certain material, or was it somebody that you hold in higher guard saying you got to get one? Like, what pushed you over the edge to finally pull the trigger on the investment of a freeze dryer?
Me and fucking my friend of Full Flavor Extracts, Kobe, we was probably about 12 packs deep on some IPA. Cause me and that good old boy, we like to, you know what I'm saying? Like, we like to do dabs and have a few, you know what I mean? And so we was sitting there and he's just like showing me this shit. And it's like, I mean, bro, at that time, like the hash was looking like cocaine. And I'm like, bro, what kind of master fucking like sieving, planing techniques have you developed, my son? And he's just like, oh, come out to my shop. I'm like, oh shit, okay. So go out there and like, there's a freeze dryer, and I'm like, what the fuck? And he's showing me like, okay, you do this, you mix it up, you put it in there, and then he actually showed me the first little set of parameters that I first started going off of, and that's where I first saw a freeze dryer was his house.
Wow. That's crazy. Those are, which unit was it?
Harvest Dry.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. That is dope.
So, switching gears a little bit, but not really, where do you sit on this whole fresh pressed versus cured? Like, if you had to pick forever for the rest of your life to receive and smoke your product, fresh pressed or cured, where do you fall here?
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that a question?
Yeah, like fresh press or cured. Like, are you, bro?
Fuck fresh press.
Fresh press is
what we saying, bro. Fuck fresh press.
Fresh press is a place and time. It's just a place and time.
Place and time.
Fuck fresh
press is a fucking place and time, man. Like, it's gonna cure. I promise.
Oh, man.
All right, expand on that, bro. Break it down for me.
Well, I just don't, bro. It's just not me.
Yeah, but
you
can't just say that. Like, back it up with some. Here's why I put in the work.
Okay. Because every time somebody gives me a jar of fresh press and I smoke it, I want to punch them in the face. How about that?
And listen, look, I understand what Jameson's saying, and I'll be the first to say, I typically think that it doesn't have the best. You can't really identify a lot of the terpenes because they're all kind of jammed together, and it hasn't settled enough in a way where you're starting to air it out and let it breathe and let it kind of mature itself to the point and nucleate to a point where it is more palatable. It's actually, and I don't care what anyone says, terpenes are an irritant. That's what they are.
Yeah, they're alcohol based as well, man.
Yeah, they'll make your shit all raw and they'll hurt you. And like, remember when people were dabbing terps back in the day and you're just like, dude,
it's very rare. Like, it's very rare I hit a fresh press that I'm like, oh, okay, that's decent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You learn. Like take a fresh press cookies and cream and dab that, and then take that same cookies and cream and let it turn a bit, half and half maybe, like Arnold Palmer, and then bam, whip that shit a little bit, and then it's more palatable. It's actually
like, is fresh press absolutely beautiful? Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
But the whole, like, just
it's a place in time.
90% of the time when you smoke the cold cure version, it shits on it.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I'm not trying to buy a gram from somebody for top dollar and have to do the work that they should have done to make the right product.
But no, it's true. And you know what, to even say, to go further, to take it to the next step, I even have respect now for some of the jams and how they're being done, because certain strains don't have this monoterpene fucking blowout flavor to it.
Of
course. It does have a distinct, I mean, there's two things about those jams, the coloration and then the blend of the terps as they sort of heat up and change a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And some strains, I've noticed, like the one that you posted the other day, they stay very light in color. So it's this light colored fucking juicy ass jam. And then, I haven't tried that one yet, but I know at the melting of the heads, I will get it. So
Oh yeah, you guys have your own little personal fucking Tbeezle box sets coming.
Oh man, I'm fucking so stoked about that.
I mean, if you already ain't got more shit to smoke.
No, I need it. I need it all.
Oh, I'm bringing terps, so terp party.
So moving on from fresh press or cured, are you still playing with any cured material in your wash bin, or are you fully committed to fresh frozen material at this point?
Yeah, it's all fresh frozen at this point.
Yeah.
I mean,
when did you start? When did you start that whole fresh frozen thing?
The only time we do cured stuff is that, like, if there's, I don't know, man, it's very rare. Like, it has to be like an order gets canceled on flowers, that kind of stuff. You know, it's very rare it happens, but I'm not going to say we don't, not ever. Okay.
Yeah. Would you ever, before we jump into Addison's question, would you ever think that a cultivar could express itself better dried or semi-dried than it would fresh frozen? Or would you think, you know what, consistently, you know, whole plant fresh frozen is going to be the best expression of that cultivar?
Well, it's usually based upon like culturally what's going on. So like most people are all into the fresh frozen and they don't realize like what amounts of terpenes are available when it's fresh compared to what, like, there's a lot more chlorophyll going on when you're doing a fresh plant. So that whole like greeny taste, you know, really goes away. And then certain essential oil flavors get heightened even more when you have a cured material, you know? So there's actually people that like prefer a cured resin. They don't want fresh frozen.
Like an older crowd. Like I started going back and smoking and well, actually getting access to pressed dried pollen that gets pressed to like the bars, you know, like the wavy crazy bars. And I got access to that again and had a couple different strains. And then I was smoking it out of the pipe with like the wick. And it's a totally different fucking high. But it's a beautiful high. It brings you back. And it's different than taking a dab. So there's, you know, I think when those heads are dried and there's different oils present, different things are there, that hashishin fucking terpene or whatever, that also gives it that like throwback kind of flavor and taste. And the high is fucking,
and fresh frozen,
it's a total different experience.
Fresh frozen is usually being pulled immature, whereas like flowers being pulled at the time it should. So you also are having usually a much more deeper flavor on the cure and a much more like outrageous stronger high.
Yeah.
Like some fresh frozen, man, people will pull 2 to 3 weeks early. Like it's very, very immature. Well, that's where you get those like just ghost white, you know what I'm saying? Like, so like it's the head color, you know, like if you take something to maturity, it's going to be a little orangey yellow.
A little darker, a little more mercy. But,
yep.
You know what I miss is that back in the day, I remember at a point when you were processing and you had a lot of different stuff going on. I would see you and you would have like the pressed pollen, you know, of the sour D. You'd have fucking raw, you know, the melt of the sour D. And it would always be like these, like you'd have it where we could like smoke it in a pipe or do this. And it was always different ways. Do you have plans to kind of bring like a sieved pressed pollen back and kind of introduce that for people, for the pipe smoker of hash? I mean, I know that I heard a statistic today from 710. They said that I think it was 5% of their total hash business is melt that goes into their sellable market for 710 in California. Only 5%. The other 90%.
That makes total sense to me. I mean, how much melt are you pulling off? You know, we got to look at the thing as the whole buffalo. You pull all your bags, you look at all your microns, pull your melt out, lay it out with everything else there. That metric makes sense to me. Like I think that, but I do completely agree that if individuals need to understand that if you push the new age solventless, you are not addressing a market that has access to expendable income, which is a market above 45 that reminisces more with like a Moroccan pressed blonde than they would be like a WPFF, live fucking GMO. Like they look at it and they're like, I don't even know what to do with this. So, but you put some hash
like it melted through the screen.
Immediately know, they know what to do with it. It's like a muscle memory thing. So I think that that's like an important thing to recognize. I wanted to circle back and ask you about, with having a lot of work done air drying and a lot of experience with a freeze dryer, do you feel you lose more terps in a perfectly executed air dry versus a properly executed freeze dry? Like, what is your opinion on that?
I mean, I'm gonna say that you're actually preserving more in the freeze dry. Just based upon like there's less air going on, less environmental air, less manipulation air on your part. And like the heads are intact. Like when you start, especially if you're microplaning, I mean, man, you're shredding heads. And then, sieving, you're still smashing a good majority of them. Like I'm a full believer in the freeze dryers. I think that advancement has really not only taking the superiority of the quality, but also like the safety. Like it's much harder to get a microbial build, in a freeze dryer. Whereas like if somebody doesn't have their cold room on point and their dehumidifier on point, and actually like pull the resin when it really is dry and not get like little antsy and, like that shit will build stuff. You put it in a freeze dryer and it's done. Like, freeze dryers are much better for the homemaker too, because if you're making it for yourself, it's better quality and it's safer. Your air of being a hash maker goes down like a lot with those. I mean, that's where a lot of people have a problem with them too, because they're like, oh, these new age hash makers, they just buy a freeze dryer on eBay and then they come in here like this. And I'm like, why? Are you sad in 2 years they're a better businessman than you are? Maybe you should get to work.
What are you afraid of?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about resin mixing and blending. We're seeing a big rise of a lot of groups, creating or cultivating maybe 3 cultivars and then creating 6 to 9 different.
I absolutely love it.
You love it. You're a huge fan.
I have a whole series of hash designed around it.
So
that's my Terp Malay series.
That's awesome. We see it in wine. There's a ton of wine blending. Grapes.
That's the name. Get it? Because in wine you have a Sauvignon. This is a Terp Malay series.
Terp Malay series. I love it.
So it's where I take artistic blends of flavors and mix them together and create things that like normally you wouldn't be able to taste.
That's amazing. I think that's very cool. So do you think that that's something we're going to see more and more of, where it will be, we're heading to a space where the differentiating factor might be, hey, this is actually all one thing instead of most of these are all blends? Or do you think blends will always remain a little bit on the more novel and obscure side?
No, I think blends should. To be honest with you, there's a lot of people doing blends that are calling it one thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like a lot of people need to like feel more open to the idea that blends are good, and people winning cups lately with blends have shown people that is the case. Absolutely. So as the community and the consumers become more open to blends being like on the top shelf, then we'll see hash makers feeling more and more like less pressured to let, so many words like kind of white lie to be able to sell their product. Because if someone sees a blend, they're like, oh, I don't want no blend. I want it to be like, seed to hash. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. But that's why I made this series. This series is clearly labeled. It's clearly stated. It's not trying to lie to anybody. It's this is the blend series that I do, you know, and they're awesome.
Very transparent.
Yeah, they're awesome because like you get flavor. Like I don't have one hash in my arsenal that tastes like strawberry pink lemonade, but when you mix lemon kombucha and passion fruit one hitter together at a 55 and 45% ratio, it makes strawberry pink lemonade.
That's dope. I want to touch on something that we got to touch on our like pre-show live yesterday, and it's a question I ask everybody, but we really got to go deep, and I'd like to do the same here because I think you made a lot of really unique points, is the rosin versus melt question. Like where do you stand on that, and what are your opinions on that as far as, you know, what you prefer on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, I like smoking rosin because it's convenient. You know what I mean? And like, for me, not one of them gets me higher than the other. They both get me stoned. And like, bro, I'm trying to run like 5 companies. Okay. I'm trying to get somewhere, be somebody, and do something. And like, I ain't got the time most of the time to sit down and do the whole melt thing and make sure everything gets cleaned, because like, I'm also anal about my glass.
That's for people who don't have jobs. Okay.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, bro, no, I tried to take a melt dab the other day on my slurper, and like, I came back after the dunk tank and like, it was still all stuck in there. And I was like all fucking stressed out because I wanted to take a rosin dab because I've been working out in the garden, sweating my ass off. And I'm like, well, fuck. Now I got, you know.
You need one of these for melt. This big Globcano from was it Black Market Glass?
And then no matter what, it's very rare. It's uber rare, actually. Melt has melt taste. That little thing at the end where you're like, I'm smoking melt. Do you know what I mean?
If you have it melt taste, you just lower the temp a little bit.
Hey, Jameson and I take hot dabs in this house, and we think about our problems. We've talked about this.
We do take hot dabs to think about our problems. Grown men take hot dabs to think about their problems.
I don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about, all right? I need a dab to like, I need some milk. So I go to milk temperature. So I get some milk up
Bro,
in
that is a hot dab. Any dragon breath dab's a hot dab, bro.
Yeah, Addison takes hot dabs, but he calls that for
Addison is a hot dabber. He's like, well, I don't dab hot. He's like,
Addison will hand you a 0.5 at 6:15 and go, just a cool one.
Never.
Just a cool one.
Never given you a 600 degree.
Hey, how about we take this and go jump in the ocean?
Listen, my good friends at Octave assure me that we're not taking 615 degree dabs over here.
Oh yeah,
not in this house.
Not in this house. My friends are. We have the same friends.
Yeah, let me see what my number. All right. Tell me what your number is right now. Where are you at?
Where am I at?
Are you set at? I'll show mine.
Okay, I'll show you my number. God damn it! You're at 5'10". Look at that.
480. 10:05, 10:50,
480.
Oh, wow. You just changed it. You're such a liar.
Dude, what?
There's no way.
He says, no.
Well, you know why?
No.
You know why mine's 5'10"? Because my dabs are bigger. That's why.
Damn!
That's the reason why, buddy.
Oh, you got to hear
It's okay. It's all right.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'll pay for that. I'll actually, you know, it's funny. Remember that post that I made the other day? That was like, I dab more than your favorite hash maker.
Yeah.
I made that post just to promote the podcast because I was like, oh, people are going to go crazy over this. And then people were like hitting me up. And then to the next thing, then Mad River Melts comes by my house, and he's an enormous person. And he comes by and he's like, oh, let's dab. I'm like, all right. And as I'm taking this 1/2 gram dab, he's like, oh, so you can dab more. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. Like, he tried to kill me. He came by here and tried to take me out. And we were just going 1/2 gram for half.
He's like, oh, you think you could smoke more than me? I knew somebody was going to get upset.
I had to be like, listen, dude, it was for the podcast. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, we were just, and he's a killer, bro. He can dab. He can actually fucking hang hard.
We were sitting next to each other at the Legends table.
Yeah.
Tbeezle, were you always a concentrate guy from an early age, or did you like as far as dabbing, or did you only get into dabbing when the rise of rosin kind of came around?
I could tell you the exact date that I took a dab. Hold on. Yeah.
Okay.
May
That's cool.
May 19th, 2011.
Wow.
And what was
Sonoma County Fairgrounds Health and Harmony Festival.
was it?
Okay.
Do you know what it was? Was it BHO?
Oh, fuck yeah, it was BHO.
Do you know who gave me my first dab was Vern at the Steep Hill Christmas party.
Oh, fuck yeah, bro. Mr. Phillips is a gentleman.
Mr. Phillips is a great gentleman. I think it was that's a special guy to get inaugurated in. So who gave you the dab and what did you dab? What was it again?
Oh, it was my own BHO.
Okay.
But we would always smoke the BHO like hot knives or this or that. Like, I ain't never seen. We always put on bong loads of weed and just snap it, you know. I never seen no nail, no nothing. I'm sitting there, and there's this old hippie guy named Pokey, and he's a glass blower. And he comes out, and he's like, "Oh, you like to smoke oil?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, would you like a hit?" And he's like, "Hold on, I'll be right back." And he like takes my bong, and he has like the male joint that's like this, and it's like a 45, and he puts it in my bong, and then he puts a nail in the one male in joint, right? And then puts a dome over it. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And he goes, oh, check it out. Heat up that nail with the torch and then like put the dome over it. And of course, you know, like we're ripping them basically almost red hot. He, you know, well, like no one knows. He didn't know either. He just knew how to design it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you remember those days, Addy? Like no one knew about that shit, about cool dabs or cold starts or.
It was very dangerous, yeah.
Yeah, so like we heat that nail, and I remember dabbing that BHO. And like, you know, I grew up like going to parties, eating mushrooms. I'd done acid at that point. And I remember like being like, holy shit. Like that's different. That's different.
So was it like on and popping from there? Like, were you like, okay, I'm going to take that. I'm going to go home. I'm going to start dabbing. And it was just kind of the concentrate or dabbing lifestyle from there? Did it take some time before you really got like, was it the appearance of rosin that got you into daily dabbing, or was it well before that you were?
Oh no, I was dabbing BHO for sure.
What about the glass scene, like that's so closely tied to cannabis? Like, were you involved in the glass scene at all coming up?
Not really, because like so back then, like when I won the Emerald Cup in 2010, they gave you banjo glass trophies. So like I have banjo pieces. You know what I mean? Like, so like the nicest stuff I had was like given to me. But like even like going through all of it, you know, like growing up like not with a lot of money and then trying to like make my own way in life, like all that shit just was like crazy expensive to me. Like I wanted a nice house and a diesel truck before I got like a $10,000 piece. You know what I mean?
Hey man, that makes a lot of sense. So switching gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about your breeding. And I mean, like kind of take it back, I guess, because you made your first crosses, I think in 2005, if I'm correct. And
like right out of high school and stuff.
Yeah. So you've been working lines for quite some time.
But we need to be clear. That's not working any sort of lines for any sort of intentional purpose of a seed company or breeding for red. I mean, this is literally like just hanging out with my mom's older brother at his property and just like observing over the years how he had always, with his own little hillbilly redneck way, well, you know, oh, this one's purple. And this one everyone likes because it's strong. Let's breed them together and see what happens, you know? Mm-hmm. And like, sure enough, this motherfucker would have a line at his door like, got any more of that? So I was like, okay, let's play around with that shit and see where we could go, because I liked hash. Yeah. And I was like, you know, I wanted to see if we could get something that tasted like strawberries in the blasting tube or tasted like a pear parfait in the blasting tube, you know?
So do you have a definition where you consider somebody a breeder? Like, is there something that you personally define as that's a breeder versus that's somebody who's just producing seed?
I mean, I don't know, man. I think just like people like to use the other term to kind of like demonize and villainize and sort of like poke fun at somebody. You know what I mean? Everybody loves to like make fun and like demonize stuff they don't understand. You know, like you'll never catch me on my page or in public bashing people that maybe someone considers what they say is a pollen trucker or this or that, you know?
Absolutely.
Like it's somebody that's like trying to make an asserted effort to do something in life that's progressive and help others. Like what else is it? Like stop trying to it's hard to make a way at first. You know what I mean? Like when you're first making a line, you are a pollen trucker that first season.
Absolutely.
But if you stick with it, you can become a breeder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're a creator.
So,
that's what I always thought was weird about that, is because even if it was by mistake, even if it was, you know, someone doesn't like it, if people do like it and it becomes popular, it's a creation. It's something that was created, you know, as long as it can be duplicated or there's a cut of it, it can keep its place, you know, and stand. And there's been some great strains that have come into this that way. And and the most important thing about our entire industry that everyone needs to understand is that this is strain specific. That's what the fuck this is, whether it's a flower strain, or if it's going to be a hash producing strain. And you know, there's different reasons for each, but it's always strain specific, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep.
So I want to talk about your body of work. We've had a chance to connect and chat a little bit. We've even gone live and kind of talked about the genetics and the work that you've done. But I think that we've seen a recent rise in individuals who are breeding for mechanical separation. And this is something that you've been doing for a lot longer than a couple years. So where did it start? Did it start with Fofana?
Yeah, so like purposely breeding for Little Lake Valley Seed Co. and actually creating the company and the hallmark strain and starting the line started in 2018. And it all started for me with the Fofana strain.
So can you talk about that? I know the cross. I think you've got Banana OG and another OG.
It's a Banana OG, Heirloom OG to Sunset Sherbert. And the Banana OG is specifically Oregon Kid cut.
And talk like what's that line like? Like what are the terps on it? What's the feedback so far? Like have you gotten it out to a lot of individuals?
Yeah, so far, Artisan Seed Bank carries the line. Soakin' Beans carries the line. Those are the only two official online seed banks that carry the gear. And a lot of people have shown interest and seems to I've restocked both the websites multiple times now, and seems like the word has gotten out. And like I always say, you know, proof is in the packs.
Mm-hmm.
But people have grown them out and have seen the results. The Fofana, to go back to your original question, is like a very heavy, creamy gas. And it can go both ways. You can get like a very nice banana terp on it, or it can get like a super like Concord grape gelato type thing. And that comes from the sherbet side.
And then you cross that with the GMO to create the shallot sashimi. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So can you talk about that line? Because I think we've got some mutual friends, and I know you've got some others growing it out, and it takes on a lot of GMO characteristics, but not all of them. And I think that, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I crossed it to the GMO because I fell in love with GMO. You know, I come from that old school, like, deadhead people. You know, I was a little kid taking to concerts, going to the lot. So, like, you know, that first weed when I was smoking with my cousins, that's all like super heavy Kim D shit. Like, so like my whole connection to first smoking cannabis and being around weed is like super heavy, skunky Kim D, like GMO type shit, which is all the weed people smoked on Dead Tour. So that was my like fascination with weed. So when I found GMO, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, you guys found like, what, you guys going to someone's fucking uncle's Deadhead tour van that they abandoned and you guys found seeds? You guys popped them and grew this shit? Like, what the fuck is this?
Michigan.
No, I was just super excited when I found GMO. So I crossed it to Fofana to make the shallot sashimi.
And where did it go from there? Was it expiration date from there, or was it Feijoa? No.
It went expiration date from there.
Yeah.
Expiration date is Exotic Genetic Mike's Cookies and Cream 13 to shallot sashimi.
And you've done a lot of like creative stuff over the years with collaborations with other breeders and stuff. I think you did a collaboration with Mean Gene from Mendocino. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I came up with this idea to do breeder box sets. So I know a couple other like, you know, well-known breeders that live around here and take like some of his well-known stuff, but he's like well-known for flowers. He's not well-known for hash. And in fact, a lot of his strains don't hash at all. And so I wanted to take them, cross them to my selections and, you know, get stuff that yields, you know, my melt yields with his terpenes, which is very rare because everyone's looking for the cherry limeade terp that, you know, washes and presses. Everyone wants that heavy limeade terp that,
Yeah.
or the heavy lime, like straight lime terp that washes. And so that's where I was going with that. And me and him have been friends for a long time. He was super excited and down for it.
And you did not just with Gene, you did a ton of other crosses with that. Who are some of the other guys that you did all of those expiration date crosses with? Besides Mean Gene, there was also a number of, because I remember from the interaction with Pipeline that there was a lot of different crosses or people that you collaborated with.
The only those weren't really like official collaborations.
Okay.
With the only like official ones that I've done is the ones with Mean Gene and then the ones with Limpire Pharmacy.
Okay.
Micah that does Compassionate Heart.
Yep. Yeah, Taylor provided. So Little Lake Valley Seed Co. is one of the first breeders that came to Pyramid Pipeline. But unlike, you know, other guys gave us a lot of stuff. There's probably 6 of them total. And Corey with 13 strains and the guys at Pacific or North Coast Genetics. And then Taylor came to us and was like, here's my entire line. And then here's another line that I haven't released yet. And then we were looking the other day. I think Little Lake Valley Seed Co. put into Pipeline almost 100 different strains. And we're talking bags of seeds, like not like, oh, here's a pack of 10
So
seeds.
let's rewind it a little bit for our listeners and talk a little bit about this connection. So for those listening, Addison runs a company called 800 Pound Mantra that has come up with a concept called Pyramid Pipeline. Addison, can you touch a little bit on what Pyramid Pipeline is and how Taylor worked and you work with Taylor and Little Lake Valley Seed Co.?
Yeah, Taylor has had a huge influence, and Taylor's access to other makers and the ability to go to Taylor and these makers and present to them like, hey, you know, what's the greatest, you know, SOP for harvesting for fresh frozen material for solventless? And then what's the best way for transport for it? And then how do you want to see it when you get it? So Taylor's been super helpful, but then Taylor also kind of is what helped us inspire a lot of what we ended up doing too, because we're such good friends. We're always communicating about different shit. And then Alex as well, who's good friends with Taylor, is another big solventless producer. And from just being close with those guys, they both helped me and Kevin, and having a relationship with Taylor as a breeder helped us kind of understand that, like, we see parts in the supply chain for solventless material, for solventless makers we see it as like a little fractured, and it wasn't completely working. And there was also these like, you know, pirates that were kind of running around and manipulating farmers and just doing weird shit. So we wanted to try to help fix as much of that as we could. So we started working with, you know, Taylor first off, and then Corey, and then a number of other breeders. And we went to them and said, look, we see that the hash supply chain doesn't necessarily have a way of getting genetics directly from breeders into it. And we made the argument that like, hey, if you give us the genetics and we do the selection ourselves and put them in, then it's only good for your brand, you know, because now your stuff's getting put, you know, we're planning on building a system so that genetics can go directly through a pipeline into the washrooms of the largest manufacturers in the state. And what we meant by that was develop a relationship with a team to be able to do your selection. And that's a good friend of Taylor's that Taylor introduced me to. That's, you know, stepping in, that we're talking with right now to be that team that's going to do the selection. And then secondarily after them, you need, you know, of course it starts with the breeder, then it starts with the selection team, then it goes into a production partner that has the space and that's willing to grow the material for you. We found that partner, we put that piece into play. And then the next part is having a distro and transport partner that can deliver that material from that farm over to your manufacturers. And then the final part is a sales team that can sell it to the manufacturers. So we've built all of that, put all of that together. Taylor's helped us with a lot of stuff, including a lot of genetics, which is crazy. We want to make sure what we want to try to do and have an effect of is that we're changing the supply chain of material that's available to solventless makers and manufacturers by creating a measure and a bar of 4%, as many 4%ers that we can add into that, and then let the market decide. And because that's going to bulk up the productivity and the material that's available, you know, the sellable material, and keep their production levels at a good level, and keep things more viable. And we think that really is what a solventless hash producer should hit. And you should breed towards is that 4% mark, because you leave the manufacturer in a much better position, and it gives you a lot more viability for your strain to be, you know, to be viable for hash production, for solventless production. So that's another thing that we try to create around this whole system. Mm-hmm. The final part of the whole entire system, the whole entire network, everything that's put together, is that every single entity in that network profits from their involvement in that and their part in doing that. And there's a bigger picture for Taylor and the other breeders where when we show the large manufacturing partner or large production partner that we have, that's the farm, when we show them, hey, this material right here from this breeder is selling really well, they share in that profit of that sale. And then what it does is it positions the breeder so that we can then go back to the large farm and go, hey, if you're interested, they're willing to do a genetic licensing deal. So then it helps introduce the breeders into a large 130 acre farm. And that's a good thing for breeders. Like that's definitely where breeders want to be positioned, is in a situation where they can either be licensing their genetics to these large farms and making a profit off of the clones that are being sold, or making a profit off of the flower that's actually being sold, or be able to have a partner that can produce genetics and flowers for them to do their own stuff. So that's kind of the final part about it. Everybody makes money with it. It adds great genetics and new stuff into the supply chain for hash producers. And Taylor's been huge in like helping us, like validate and confirm and fucking structure a lot of the different stuff that's been in there, and then attract the attention of other breeders and give us access to all the projects that he's working on. Like, I don't think there's a single project that he's done that he hasn't just come down to my house and taken like 0.5 gram dabs and just left us giant bags of seeds for pipeline. So yeah, we're super stoked, and we're doing some selection now. I know that like at the Melting of the Heads, there's quite a bit of people that are going to have the genetics and stuff. And I'm really looking forward to talking to a lot of people, or even gathering genetics there and kind of like being able to get some stuff that we can get into pipeline.
Well, that goes back to Jameson's original thing about what I was saying about Mikey and MTS. When Jameson wanted to tie back the shallot sashimi thing to other people, MTS Mikey happens to be on and going to that. And he's the one that has my Southern hospitalities that he has all the rosin of you get to smoke, and he has it all in clone form.
Sick. Yeah, I mean, I always hope, because you see how the hash community is kind of the saltless hash community is sort of the last to develop almost, in terms of like it's, I don't know, it's just taken that long for it to kind of build to the point that it is. I feel like that community is a little kinder than some of the other communities within the cannabis space. Do you agree? What do you think about that statement?
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely.
A little more open to share stuff, a little more.
It's definitely less rough than the grower space.
Yeah, or the breeding space.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd say 100%.
Yeah, and maybe it's because everyone's so high.
What about John Stockton? Is that a recent release that you just made?
That's out of the expiration date line.
Yeah. What's the cross there?
Pressure to expiration date. Pressure is Gary Payton to Rainbow Chip.
So with all this, with the newfound interest in or explosion in popularity of breeders selecting and breeding for hash, where do you think the plant maxes out as far as yield? Do you feel that GMO is a good representation of the end goal, or do you feel that the plant has the ability to go much more farther in regard to solventless yield?
I think probably could go up to like 11%. I think it max out around like 10, 11.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, I think you're doing a lot of work and putting a lot of stuff together to be able to look at that. Do you ever have any plans of doing a smokable line, or will Little Lake Valley always be a solventless company?
Yeah, so my business partner that Addison just mentioned, that's doing a lot of the selection and the growing part, he's a big flower smoker. He dabs, but he's not like a dabber. And he's been encouraging me to do a flower line. So he wants me to do a flower line. So I think I'm going to do one of those this year. And then also people have been requesting feminized seeds. And I've always been a big proponent of against feminized, because I'm a big, I grew up sort of like a little hippie kid in the woods that, grow outdoor, natural, underneath the sun, the moon. And, I have like my own beliefs about that with the seed growing. But also, like, I just don't believe in changing it, like you're putting your human hands on it, you're spraying this shit on it, come on now. But then I just realized, like, some people live places that want to support me and buy my product, and they need to be able to guarantee that what they're popping is what it is, and they need it to be a female. So then I was like, I'm sort of like being an asshole here and taking my own view and judgments with my company, which is a dangerous thing to do. And I was just like, I'm ignoring this big sector of people who are nice, caring, loving cannabis enthusiasts. And I'm saying, yeah, you can't get my seeds because I don't want to make those because I don't believe in it. And I was like, get over yourself. So
being idealistic, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to make a small feminized line this year as well, to help support the people who, don't got a giant yard and can't grow this and that. They need, they're going to grow 4 small plants on a balcony, and they need all of them. They want to grow this flavor and one of this flavor and one of this flavor,
Yep.
So
more to order, which is smart. That's a good idea. I bet it'll open up a lot of sales as well.
Oh yeah. It's not really about the sales to me. Of course it'll open up sales, but it's more importantly like making sure these people feel like they're being taken care of and they're being acknowledged, and I'm not just sitting over here being arrogant and stupid about how I run my company. That's more of the bigger point of view just personally for me. But yes, the side effect of that and getting the extra money will be nice. I'm not going to lie.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you about the market, like the California market, the Colorado market, the Washington market, even the Canadian market. They're all in a tough spot right now. Are you optimistic about the next 3 years, or do you think that things are going to get worse before they get better?
So it's not like anyone is like slowed down on smoking cannabis. In fact, with the more legalization going on, even more people are smoking cannabis and coming out of their shells. And so there's money to be made. The amount of money that transactions hands in the place where Addison lives alone. Okay. There are 31 million people live in the county where Addison lives. There's 8 million people in the entire state of Colorado. So every day,
the total population of California is what, like 37 million?
I thought it was like I think it's like 43.
Is it? It's higher. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like 43 and your county has like 31 of it. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. So there's money being traded hand over fist every day in all sorts of situations. The thing about cannabis is right now is that business has finally caught up to cannabis. And now cannabis has to start playing a fair game and catching up to business. If you don't want to be just plain and simple steamrolled and bulldogged over. Yeah. Like, because it's a lot easier to learn business than it is to grow cannabis and make cash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're coming from the other direction, it's a better
transition. It's much harder. It's literally harder, and they know that.
You have to be willing to learn business.
Yes, but they're praying to God that you don't understand that, and you're not willing to at least go take one. Let's just enroll in one junior college course of business ethics and see what happens.
Or just get murked. Just come in and get murked. Get your ass beat so bad on 3-4 different businesses that you get lit coming from the cannabis side, and then learn. Or hopefully you retain enough understanding of corporate structure to like protect yourself. But that's really what it comes down to. And percentages game.
I think it's hard, Jameson. I think it's really hard, and it's going to be hard. But that's where the growth is.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
This is where people tuck, fold, and give in, the average man. So this is where you can literally gain so much traction on people that do have things, that start getting comfortable, and so they start tucking in resources and assets instead of investing everything and putting in every communication, everything they know.
Yeah.
This is where you can actually steamroll and get yourself ahead. But is it going to be terrifying? Yeah. But like I said, that's where all the growth is. This is where you're going to learn the most and become the most of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. The only way is through. So let me ask you this then. In your mind, what role does traditional market business play in the industry's future? Like, do you see it remaining the same?
I mean, man, it depends where you live, because here in California, especially where cannabis culture was born, in Northern California, where I am, and it was held down for so long, like, there ain't no one shopping in rec shops here. Do you know what I mean? Like, we still all do our thing we've always done. So the whole like black market thing will be here for forever.
Well, other states can't go to the dispensary.
Well, as of now, most of them for sure.
Yeah.
I just got back from a conference in Toronto, a fairly large conference where Steve D'Angelo flew in to say a few words, and in his brief speech, he which I know is surprising, but it was actually pretty brief. He verbalized to the Canadian audience that if you're a Californian, and I'm paraphrasing, but if you're a Californian and you're buying cannabis in the legal system, you're probably not that plugged in. A lot of Californians are sourcing their cannabis from traditional markets. And I think that, coming to that realization and then understanding and how are we going to work with them? I mean, in the Canadian market, 2018 was coming, and they were saying, if you're operating after October 17th, 2018, and you're in the traditional space, you can't use that brand to transfer. And that was complete garbage. And now you've got brands who are getting started in the traditional market and then leveraging that brand recognition over, doing licensing deals in the legal space. And I just like, do you think that that's going to continue in California, or California being a more seasoned market and the leader on these things? Like, where do you see it going? I know a max exodus is happening in California right now. Like, what are your thoughts on that whole thing?
I mean, it's just, that's what happens, man. That's why you have terms. Like, that's why you have winners, losers. That's why you have things called quitters. And I'm not trying to be rude or demeaning here, but this is how life goes. Like when the storm approaches, you know, a person's character will hold them sturdy to the ground, or it will send them running for safety. Like, what are you made of? A lot of people are finding out who and what they're made of right now. And a lot of people are tucking tail and running because they're realizing, like, I'm not that big, strong-minded, willed person that I thought I was that built all this character. You know, like you don't judge a person in time of comfort and convenience. You judge them in times of like challenge and controversy.
Yeah,
that's how
absolutely.
It happens. That's life.
So, what advice do you have for craft breeders such as yourself on positioning themselves in this, you know, quickly evolving space?
Come up first with an idea. It all starts with an idea and then a vision. You need to think about something that's going to set yourself apart. Like,
be genuine.
Yeah. You can get ideas and kind of like play stuff together from other people. You don't got to reinvent the wheel here, but you got to kind of come up with your own way of how to do this thing, or you're going to be a copycat. Yeah. And copycats still sort of come about and successfully make money, and, you know, it's seen out there. But like, if you want to really set yourself apart and really, like, you know, be somebody that has something and you're recognized for something, you know, like the true recognition that somebody really kind of validity someone seeks, you're going to have to do the work. And that's the second part that comes. It's called work. Like, you're going to have to get up earlier than everybody else. You're going to have to go to bed later than everybody else. And in between those hours, you're going to have to outwork them. And really, 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 like, schedule it out. And don't play games with yourself. Don't lie to yourself. You know, it is like, it's a, you know, I'm not where I am right now in life because I'm talented, because I'm skilled. I'm here because of an overwhelming, disgusting amount of work ethic. Like literally, like, while you sleep, I work. While you party, I work. While you take your girlfriend to dinner, I work. Like, literally, if you want to take somewhere and be something and make it, you're going to have to work.
Yeah. 100%. So that brings me to my next question. In addition to the cannabis and in Little Lake Valley, you actually started a biodynamic single source hot sauce company. Can you talk a bit about that?
I started that in 2020. I just have garden space at my house.
Were you always a hot sauce guy? Like, was this
what's up?
Were you always a hot sauce guy?
You know, not necessarily like crazy, you know, like fanatic hot sauce guy, but I definitely really enjoy eating it. And you know, the pandemic sort of like all people, I'm sure, frightened and scared them a little bit at first. And I sort of wanted to sort of find a way that I could branch out and make more business and monetary stuff to take care of myself in a way that I knew how, but also in a way that wasn't going to be like damaging and like non-productive. You know, sort of like killing the earth, or, you know, like harming others, or that kind of stuff. And so, like, always grew up gardening and did the cannabis thing. So I was like, hey, know how to grow. And so I was like, you know, I'm gonna grow these chilies. So then I was like, you know, motherfuckers love hot sauce. Mm-hmm. So the first year I just grew a couple plants, made a couple bottles of hot sauce, and everyone loved it so much. They were just kind of like some people were like jokingly like, hey, can I prepay you for my bottles next year? And I was like, are you like joking? Or like, they were like, no, I actually would pay you. And I'm like, okay, sold. Gotta grow lots of chilies. You know?
That's awesome, man. And I can tell. It's crazy to me that you don't have a professional culinary background, because your next project that you took on was Black Market Donuts, and you're making donuts, man, that would rival any gourmet donut shop that I've seen.
I actually have a Michelin rated starred sous chef in my house right now. And he is absolutely fucking flabbergasted I do that shit in my home kitchen. He can't. Bro, he literally can't.
I need to see it.
He literally can't believe it.
Yeah.
Like, he comes to the donut events and eats the donuts, and he's like, "I hate you." But
that's awesome.
He's like, "Michelin, and you're over here just doing these donuts in some kitchen in Willits."
It's incredible. So if you had to pick just one, what would be, your proudest achievement in the last 5 years?
Proudest achievement in the last 5 years. So, like, I'd have to start out by referencing like my past and stuff for this one.
Go for it, man. This is your platform.
So, like, I was like severely abused as a child, and that goes back to part of the reason like I probably didn't have many friends or a girlfriend or anything like that. And a lot of people develop like drug issues, alcohol, cocaine, with trying to cope with the pain. Mine was sex. So I became like a sexual deviant addict. And like, it came into my like young adulthood where like I got into like prostitutes and call girls and escorts and all that kind of shit to like deal like with the pain of being abused as a child. So I come like 27 and I meet my wife, and I don't deal with all my bullshit inside of me, all my pain. So I cheat on my wife with escorts and prostitutes. I totally lose her. And so she left me like 4 years ago. No, like, 4 or 5 years ago. And so ever since that time, I totally took like up as being a competitive power lifter. I took my gym as like some kind of crazy meditative, like self-fixing, because I was never a drug person, never an alcohol person. And then once I did that to my wife and I did that to myself in my life and destroyed, I was like, I can't do this. So after that, my proudest moment is that I've been celibate and haven't had sex, and totally have been just trying to narrow myself for like going on almost like 5 years. I've been celibate.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah. So I had to learn the hard way through being like sexually abused as a child and molested from the time I was 5 to 12. And then carrying that trauma and harm with me into my adulthood. I had to learn the hard way how harmful it is and what you can lose. So that's why I'm so open about talking about all these things about myself and what I've done to fix myself, because I really believe that it's like my mission in life to like share openly these things. Because I think if we share them, we can help others lost in darkness find their way to light, you know?
It's almost like you've become a Turk monk and you've kind of taken this path.
Right. And like these things are very hard to share, and it's taken me like a lot of like effort and meditation to be able to come to terms with like openly sharing them to like with people, you know. But I truly believe like a lot of the stuff that we suffer from is because people keep it inside instead of using it as a tool to teach others. Because like, bro, we all hurt. Like if you haven't experienced trauma yet, you will.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think that transparency is the ultimate flex, because there's so much vulnerability in it.
Facts.
And just, there's so much vulnerability, and it takes a lot of confidence, or it takes a lot of like courage, bravery to just be yourself, and then to go down that and figure that shit out. And I wasn't joking about like a terp, fucking monk, because it's sort of like a lot of that meditative level of all that stuff for you, and your focus is all reached through the consumption of hash And I know the path too of like going into the gym, and there's something about deads and squats and that stuff, and like, you know, a good healthy dose of tool that just brings it all together, but a lot of dabs and like, you know, no, that's
yeah, for sure.
It's and I know a lot of guys. I've seen a lot of cats that are in hash, that are in cannabis space, you know, slide into the gym and learn the way of that, and then kind of build this like, you know, it's like a mindfulness. You know, I guess is the best word to
I'd say
apply.
you could sum it up that in the last 5 years, my greatest achievement is turning myself into the person that I love and I should become.
There you go.
That's great
achievement.
And we see it. We see it. You know, like
Wow.
I see, you know, I remember first stumbling on you on that page and, you know, just doing all the weightlifting and stuff. And I thought that was truly inspiring to have like somebody consuming a lot of hash publicly, and then also pursuing a really active and healthy lifestyle. And I you know, seriously commend you for it.
Yeah.
And just being open to share, man. Like a lot of us, Instagram culture, weed culture is all about, you know, this is the best room I've ever grown. But you know, you're not going to see the worst room I've ever grown, or the half okay rooms I've grown. You're going to see the best room I've ever grown. You're going to see the best bud on the best angle of the best corner of the best room I've ever grown. And, you know, that's the way it is.
With someone else's money.
So I think that, you know, your honesty and truth, and, you know, what Addison said about the flex is, I completely agree, is that, you know, when you become comfortable with yourself and, you know, you really give less fucks about what people think, and you put it out there knowing that like, hey man, I'll show you what I'm doing, because there's no way you're hungry enough, you got enough time in the day, or you got the flavor that I have. Yeah. So, you know, come with it, right? So it's that comfort level.
I actually invite that type of competition, like literally, because I will grind so hard that you will wake up one day, walk into your mirror, and you will hate the thing that's staring back at you, and you will quit.
Man, so where does
Are you talking shit to me right now? Are you calling me out?
Yeah, see, motherfucker.
Yo, where's that?
How dare you?
Is that the early days up on the hill, being told what to do with your family? Like,
so I was always a 3-sport athlete. My dad has a master's degree in kinesiology. So like my dad like raised me to be like a little athlete. And so like when I would go out and do wrestling or go out and do like any sport, he'd tell me like that's not your opponent, it's your enemy. And we fucking destroy our enemies. He goes, anyone that decides they're going to do competition against us, he goes, they get ran the fuck over. So like I'd be playing sports, bro, and I'd be fucking destroying little kids, bro. And people's parents would be like, your son hurt my son. And my dad would be like, well, tell him to fucking quit the team.
You were competing against children when you were an adult?
No, I'm talking when I was the same age as a kid. Like, but I like when you have a dad that's old like that and he's raising you to be ruthless. Some parents take their kid to sporting events and like, oh, it's fun. I'm trying to teach him like how to have fun here. And my dad was like, no, we don't have fun. We win.
Oh
you know?
Are there any other people who have been instrumental or influential in your journey that you haven't had a chance to touch on?
Yeah, my grandmother raised 11 kids by herself, like as a school janitor in a 2-bedroom shack with no floors and no running water and an outhouse. But we're talking dirt poor Southern people here, dude. I'm not
some grapes of wrath shit right here,
bro. I'm not joking with you.
Sure.
So like this is before HUD. You know the Herbing and HUD.
Yep.
Housing and Urban Development fucking law went into bill. So like that fucking wasn't in existence when my grandma had all these little kids. HUD came to Willits and built her like a house that like had a bunch of bedrooms, running water. You know what I mean? Like, but like when my mom was growing up, like here in Willits, they lived in a junkyard. That's the reason my mom married my dad so young, because it was like her way out of the ghetto, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So who are some of the individuals that are making extracts either in your direct vicinity or that you're aware of that, that are on your radar that you're really excited about?
I'd have to say, let's see. Oh, I hope he's watching Tito Swollen Heads with the.
Oh, that's a good.
We got our fucking statues going on here. So we got Tito of Swollen Heads. We got Ganesh Ganja Guru. We got Kobe Full Flavor. Got Real Deal Resin. And I really like Ridge Boys, the Real Ridge Boys. Bose Company.
Yeah.
That's good. That's the good stuff. And there's many more, and there's no particular order in that either.
Those Swollen Heads Ridge Boys collabs were pretty fire. I don't know if you got any of those.
Yeah, for sure. I got that 10-part series collab coming out with all those guys. And those split half jars, the 5150 series collaborations.
Tbeezle, what's one lesson you wished you learned earlier in your career, in your business career?
In my business career?
Or your hash career?
How to keep my mouth shut and how to forgive.
I think that's a fucking solid answer, man. So
I have a question for you. Looking back now on Powdery Mildew Gate. What are you with? And do you want to talk about that whole thing? Have you?
Oh, bro, I talk about anything. I talk about anything with you guys. I don't care.
That's because there's like what I think is so interesting about your story is that when we talk about it, even like discussing it here, you had there was in your career and what you were doing, even when you just left off talking about your addiction and the issue that you had and how your marriage fell apart. At that same exact time, it was it was kind of all sort of happening, right? It was
for sure.
And I remember that was right when I moved down here and we were good friends.
Yeah, that's when you left the Central Valley and went down to SoCal.
Yep. And I remember too, at the same time, there was an incident that happened where you posted on social media and there was some material and it had powdery mildew on the material.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what you were referencing. Yeah.
Yep.
That was was a batch of material that I was doing for my friend, and he's a quadriplegic, and he's barely able to get people to come over and help him and stuff, so most of the time his stuff doesn't turn out the best.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was washing it for him. I made the video of it, posting it for him, all happy, because he watches the posts and stuff. And, I'm not even like in my mind, like, bro, I still don't see myself as like some like Tbeezle is this character that I made up, like as a selling point, and I'm like Taylor. And like we were talking about that time in my life, I have so much of this other crazy shit coming down on my head.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even viewing myself as this person other people are watching as like influential or should be doing this or should not be doing that, or and so it was a very valuable lesson in me to learn that I need to literally watch what I do and say in my life and how it's presented to others that view this, because there are others that view me as that person.
Yeah.
And like, that was a batch done for him that like, he doesn't even he doesn't care. Like, he wouldn't give me stuff to make knowing that if he didn't want it back. He doesn't, what I'm saying? He doesn't give a shit. And I made it on bags that like, they're like cheap ones that we do test wash with. So after I'm done washing it,
powdery mildew is
away.
a plant pathogen. It's a plant pathogen. It's not a human pathogen.
No, for sure. But at the same time, like, it was just a very, very, very valuable growing lesson and tool for me.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a very big positive side, because there was this very large group of people that I had met through Instagram that apparently were only trying to be friends with me off of the people and connections and the places that I could go and take them. Because once that happened, I was not there, like literally, like I literally was like told in DMs that like I'm not allowed to come to their house anymore. I'm not allowed to talk to them. Like we're not friends anymore. And I was like,
it's whack.
Understood. You know, so I was like, it was a very valuable lesson too, because I was like, damn, it weeded that many succubus, sneaky underground motherfuckers out of my life. Thank you. Like, so you can get a positive and there's a negative to every situation, you know? And it took me a while to realize the positive, you know, because I was like, God, Taylor, you're such a fucking, you know, why'd you do that? You're such a dumb fucking little piece of shit motherfucker, dude. Like, why would you like, come on, man, you know? And we all have these moments where we get down on ourselves and say, you know, like,
Negative
what the fuck's
speak.
wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know,
I asked the question because I see where you are now and everything that you're doing now and how productive you are now and everything that you have going on now. And I personally knew where you were back then. And that's why it's like there's such a huge transformation and so much in your life has changed in that period of time. So,
well, I'm actually thinking about starting to write a book about it. I'm going to title the book, it's called The Way of the Weights. And it's going to show how becoming a competitive powerlifter saved my life from a downward spiral of sexual addiction and self-hatred into a completely successful businessman that like loves himself.
That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
It's a good story.
So, Taylor, what are you excited about? What's upcoming? You know, this is your time to plug. You got the donuts, you got the chili, you got seed drops.
Everything.
Chilies are planted. I expanded my hot sauce garden by 240 cubic feet.
Oh,
I
shit.
effectively doubled my chili gardening area. So I've got about 100 chili plants in the ground. Seed boxes for my seed company. I invested a nice little penny in direct print seed boxes. So those are all on the way, paid for. Tbeezle.com is about to drop in about 2 weeks. That's where you can find information about like upcoming events. I'll be marketing the seeds off of there. So we'll be doing seed drops, all the unique things we do with that company. We'll be posting where there's black market donut events. Be selling the hot sauce off of there too. The hot sauce is usually an annual drop at harvest time. So it'll probably be like one of those timed quick drops. Like last year I sold out of 146 bottles in 15 minutes on my IGDM.
Yeah.
So I think
Crazy.
the website should be a cool little ticket for the hot sauce thing. And of course I'm designing a bunch of merch too. So that there's going to be this really nice, elaborately designed website with all I'm sure you've seen all the artwork I've been coming out with on all the jars. And
Absolutely.
so there'll be a bunch of an artwork portfolio will be displayed on the website. So that's one of the like coolest projects coming up.
I like it.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, bro. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you helping me set up the judging competition at Melting of the Heads.
Hell yeah, brother.
You have yourself a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody. Shout out to Dutch Balloons and to Marcus Richardson for allowing us to stream this on their channels.
Yes, thank you. And if you get a chance, my new Instagram is Turpova2 and Turpova3. My regular page was disabled again for some giant dab that I took on there or something. So hopefully I get that back. I've heard that someone's helping me get that back now. So, but for now, Turpova2, Turpova3 on Instagram. So.
Awesome. And check out Melting of the Heads at www.meltingoftheheads.com. Events in July. Hope to see you there. Tickets on sale now. Cheers, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Peace.